Shalom.
Got some Shabbat Shalom's, got some Presbyterian Shabbat Shalom's. Is kind of. We are in I don't want to know if you want to say it. It's the famous or infamous Torah portion, Tisa, which means when you elevate, and it's talking about in the beginning here about the lighting of the menorah, if I'm not mistaken, and it also contains the horrible chapter of the gold calf idol, chapter 32. That's where we're going to be at today, reading the first 8 verses. Chapter 32, verse number 1 through verse number 8. It says, and when the people saw that Moshe was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, arise, make us mighty ones who go before us. For this Moshe, this man who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, we don't know what's become of him. Aaron said to them, take off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he took this from their hand, and he formed it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. And they said, and notice he made it, and then their decree about what he made was, this is your mighty one, or your Elohim, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Aaron saw and built a slaughter place before it. Aaron called out and said, tomorrow is a festival to Yahweh. They rose up early on the next day and offered ascending offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Yahweh said to Moshe, go, get down, for your people who you brought out of the land of Mitzrayim have corrupted themselves. They have turned quickly aside out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and have bowed themselves to it and slaughtered to it and said, this is your mighty one, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Mitzrayim. Now, it doesn't get any better when you continue to read. So we'll pause there for the time being. Johnny danced all over my teaching today. Choices. Why do we choose to do what we choose to do? What is that motivation? Adam and Hava, Adam and Eve, for whatever reasoning in their minds, determined that the unclean fruit of the forbidden tree was desirable and appealing to them, and they said, let's eat some of it. Why did they make that choice? I'm sure that if Adam and Hava are in the kingdom, that there's going to be this long line of people. It may take 1,000 years for them to answer the question that everybody wanted to ask. What were you thinking? And Adam will still be saying, she did it. And Hava will still be saying, the devil made me do it. For some unwritten reason, David Hamelech, David the king, thought it acceptable to take another man's wife, Bathsheba, and bring her into his chamber. Maybe he reasoned that as king it would be permissible and okay, or maybe he just acted and didn't think at all. Whether we'd like to admit it or not, there are times that we react instead of respond. You want to respond. You don't want to just react. Because reactions can be instinct. And sometimes your instinct is not right. Moshe allowed a moment of passion to overcome his better choices, and instead of speaking to the rock as he was commanded, he hit the rock and forfeited his ability to go into the land. What was he thinking? Why did he make that choice? Nadav and Abihu thought it permissible to overstep the declared protocols of Yah's presence, and fire came out and consumed them instantly. They didn't have a chance to even say, I'm sorry. What were they thinking? Why did they make that choice? Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, decided in his great wisdom that the Father gave to him that he needed 700 wives and 300 concubines.
He clearly wasn't thinking.
He thought this was a reasonable arrangement for him as king. But they turned away his heart from Yah, who had given him the very throne that he sat on. So we come to today. Aaron determined, for whatever reasoning and process of thought, he determined that crafting a gold calf idol was the best choice of action. In doing so, he was causing, aiding, and abetting Am Israel's descent into idolatry. And they did this right in front of Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, where Yah's presence had just come down in magnificent, overwhelming display. They were doing it right in front of the mountain where Moshe was up in this cloud speaking to Yah. It wasn't like the cloud had lifted and there was no indication that the Father was even around. They just determined the best thing for us to do, or at least Aaron is, we're going to make an idol. Now, human history is filled with examples of people making choices that were less than right or righteous or profitable. But for them, at the moment, it seemed a good choice, or at least a choice that they were willing to make. Every one of us could tell the story of the choice that we made, probably as a teenager. No offense to the teens. But somewhere in our storied past, there were those choices that we made, and every one of us could tell how, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what came over me. I don't know why I did what I did. And for some of us, the consequences were brief and non-consequential. For some of us, they may have changed the rest of our lives. Reverend, you mentioned a young man that you went to high school that was a great golfer, ended up behind the wheel drunk and died in a car crash. For whatever reason, he decided to get behind the wheel that night. There was a life just gone. The choices that we make. Looking back upon what others have done, we might ask, obviously, what were they thinking? Or were they thinking at all? It's also easy for us to look at others and their actions and do so with criticism and scrutiny, but then not offer the same scrutiny and criteria for judging our own actions and choices. So the overall question for today is this: why do we do what we do? Why do we willingly make choices that we know are not acceptable or will lead or will not lead to positive end results? Why do we do that? Anybody got an idea? I'll offer you a few thoughts. You add yours in. It could be because of addiction or habit or rage or anger. Huh?
Influence.
Peer pressure or influence? Reldon, you stretching or commenting?
I'll comment. I think it's the plumb line thing. What is your plumb line?
Explain that, Lucy. Explain that, Lucy.
Yes.
Plumb line is a weight hung on a string, and it's always going to be straight. In other words, this is level, that's straight up and down. And what is your plumb line? In other words, what is pointing towards the Father? And what's deviating off of that plumb line is wrong, no matter what. It can't be better or worse. It is either perfect or imperfect.
Okay.
So what is your plumb line? That will be your choice. If your plumb line is imperfect, then you will make imperfect choices.
So it's whatever standard, another word for that would be your standard. What is your absolute standard of acceptable conduct or choices?
Yeah.
Okay.
Line up with the word.
The insecurity and denial, too.
Okay.
I think sometimes human nature is to dwell on self and do those things that, at least for the moment, make you feel good, that may not be the right thing to do.
Selfishness then? Or self-focused?
Self-focus.
Sometimes it's desperation.
Yeah.
That's true.
You feel like I didn't have but one choice to make, and I knew it wasn't a good one, but it was the only one available. Or impatiently, you were desperate because you were not willing to wait for a better solution to show up. Sometimes it's a defeated mindset. If you're depressed or defeated and you don't believe in yourself, you're going to make bad choices because, well, it's what everybody expects me to do. I might as well prove them right because I'm a nobody anyway.
Singing from, like you said, like 3 weeks ago, and you reiterated it, I think, last week about improvement is,
The greatest detriment to deliverance.
yes. And when we make a choice to improve, sometimes we fall short because we just, like you said, we improved something, but we didn't make it as good as it
Yep.
we could have been.
Sometimes the bad choices I made is because I didn't heed the voice of God. I heard it, I didn't heed it.
Disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
I'm guilty, I'm sorry.
Everybody pray for Joyce this week. Add her to your prayer list.
Before our hand got blown up, I heard a voice that said, "Don't hit it again." And you know what I did?
Did it again.
The voice came out of nowhere. Nobody there was me that spoke that voice. So
Ah.
and
It's been a lifelong consequence.
That's why I said denial, I think sometimes, or maybe denial's not the exact word. Like we hear that voice and we either don't think we're really hearing. I know there's been times when I've done nothing major, but I'll hear something like the Ruach will say, go do this, or you forgot this, or go look at this, and I'll ignore it, and I'll go on my way, only to have to go back because I heard it, and he was trying to save me from doing something or having to do something that I didn't need to do, and because I didn't listen. So denying the voice, sorry. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's the-
One last one I think of is it can't happen to me. The bad consequence, I'm young, it can't happen to me. Too many young people, especially, I was recounting with Mitchell the other day, the number of teenagers in my high school years that got killed because of bad choices. So who's to blame? Whose fault is it? In 1970, on the Ed Sullivan show, Flip Wilson said, "The devil made me do it." The devil made me do it. Some people even wore that on their t-shirt. Remember that? Some have arrogantly declared that Yah made them with the compulsions, the inclinations, and the desires, so it's actually his fault. He made me this way. So that means that I can do what I do because I can't help but do what I do. He made me this way. So I want to lay a scriptural foundation about flesh and spirit, but then I want to deal with 3 areas that I see, and there are more. There are just 3. We can't discuss all of them today. 3 areas that I see why people do what they do. So it comes down, the basic spiritual answer here is living in the flesh versus walking in the spirit, Johnny. So Johnny was talking about this a little earlier. You have a choice on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Sometimes you have to make this choice multiple times in a 24-hour period as to whether you're going to live in the flesh or walk by the Spirit. You cannot choose today for the rest of your life and say, well, I made the choice and therefore I don't have to deal with that anymore. No, because somebody's going to come along who not only knows where your buttons are to push, but they actually enjoy trying to push them. I heard a counselor say one time that the reason so many marriages are incompatible or do not work out or fall apart, etc., is because knowingly or unknowingly, both partners end up triggering the other one. You have these things, these stresses, these emotional memories, whatever it is inside you, and somebody can say something, do something, not say something, not do something. It could be the cologne they wear. It could be the way they chew their food. But it triggers you. And it's not because of anything that they're doing at that particular moment. It's something that they remind you of inwardly that was a problem in your past. And I just cut that off. Try that again. So sometimes a partner knows, I don't know why you do that, but when you do that, that just bugs me. And we kind of just sneak around and wait for our next opportunity to do that and see what kind of reaction we can get. Mitchell, you're grinning too big. You're suspicious right now. But sometimes it's not humorous at all. Sometimes it is traumatic. And sometimes you don't know that you're doing it. You just said, can you please pass me the pepper? And the next thing you know, you got World War III at the dinner table. It's like, what did I do? Am I the only one that's ever happened to like that? Only one that will admit it in public. But sometimes it causes relationships, not just marriage relationships, but many relationships to break apart. I just can't stand to be around that person. Why? Because I don't know what it is about them, but they make me so mad. Well, the reality is you and I are made of dirt. That is, we're physical realm, physical people. So originally, it was not a design flaw to be made out of the dirt or the mud of this earth, but rather The purpose of you and I being crafted from the very earth that we walk upon was to bear the image of the Creator in another realm. His image was revealed in the heavenlies by some means, but in that you and I are created in His image, we are a reflection of the Most High in a physical realm. He is spirit, Ruach. We are not. But yet in our flesh, we reflect Him. It's an amazing mystery. But it has become a flaw. Why? The very breath of the Creator entered into the shell of mud and caused it to become a living, speaking being, spirit. And it is His breath that animates us. It's why we have the ability to focus, to think, to choose. The very fact of the nature that animates us residing in us is from Him. It gives to us the ability to make choices. Yah does not seek those that mechanically color inside the lines and keep the rules lest they incur negative consequences, so much as He's looking for those who lovingly seek His face and His will, and they choose to obey Him. To choose to serve Him. The positive benefits are not the primary focus, but an added bonus on top. Yeshua said in Yochanan, or John, chapter 14 and verse 15, if you love me, you will keep my commands. We are not keeping the Torah for the purpose of being declared born again. You're never going to keep Shabbat so perfectly that it will save your being.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter how I keep Shabbat, right? No. No, the way I keep Shabbat, observe Shabbat, honor Shabbat, step into Shabbat, declares my love for Him. I'm not afraid that if we choose not to light candles one Erev Shabbat meal, or if, by some means we do something that we would normally not do on Shabbat, that a ball of fire is going to fall out of the heavens and consume me. But rather, I choose to keep the parameters of Shabbat, keep the day set apart, because I love Him. In Matthew chapter 19, when you read verse 16 through 22, a rich young man that, if you read the version in Luke 18:18, it calls him a ruler. So he's known as the rich young ruler, approaches Yeshua. A ruler as such, then he would have been a member of probably the priestly family. Remember the Sadducees. And he came seeking what more he could do to find eternal life. Yeshua said, keep the commands. Isn't that interesting? Yeshua didn't say, pray this prayer after me. Join my congregation. He said, keep the commands. He said, all of those things I've done from my youth. I've been trained to keep the Torah. I know how to walk in the Torah. I know what all of the commands are. I know what all of the stipulations and fences that are around the Torah consist of. I know the oral traditions. I know all of this. I do these things. Yeshua then said to him, then go and give of your wealth to the poor and come follow me. And he went away sad because he was very wealthy. He made the choice. I would rather hold on to my wealth in this world than to change in the required fashion to have life that I have been seeking beyond this world. It's too important for me to have my wealth. Now, in Matthew 19:24, we read a verse that is normally translated, Yeshua talks about how hard it is for a rich person to go into the kingdom. And it's normally written in such a way that we say it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom. The word that is used here, gamla, a gimel, a mem, a lamed, and an ayin, can refer indeed to a camel, but it is also the word that is translated rope. How do you obtain a rope? You take fibers and you twist them or braid them together. It's not just one strand of fiber, it is multiple strands of fiber that are twisted or braided together. Well, if I have a rope and I have a needle, how am I going to get this rope through that needle? I have to unwind it and take the very single strand that is thin enough to go through the eye of the needle. If your rope, your security, what you're holding on to is your wealth, Yeshua says, unravel your rope. Get rid of the majority of your wealth. Hold on to what you need, and that's enough to go to the eye of the needle, and you can enter into the kingdom. If you're going to try to shove the entire rope through there, it's going to be a frustrating endeavor. It's not going to work. What are you holding on? It may not be wealth. It could be acceptance of others. It could be your puffed up imagination about yourself. It could be people that you're holding on to or people that you're pushing out the door. Whatever your rope is, whatever your situation, your security, whatever you say, I can't live without this. Yeshua may say you have to divest yourself of the majority of that and hold on to what I give you to go through. Choice is yours. Reldon, do you have your hand up?
Do you think that Yeshua making that statement was just for that situation or for a blanket? He put it out there for everyone.
I think it was for everyone. Because the man had already walked away. He wasn't saying it to the man. He was saying it to his followers.
So, of all the things in the Word, I would say that's the least walked out of them all.
Among them.
Because when you look at America, United States of America, and then you look at the rest of the world, with the exception of maybe Dubai, we're all rich.
Comparatively so.
So that conviction could be over a good amount of Americans.
Most of us have more of everything than what we need.
Right. So shouldn't we be convicted?
I think
Shouldn't
it's
we
what
be
you
a
do with
better
the
role
Lord.
model to the world than we are? I know we're giving a lot of money to other countries.
If we have the wrong attitude about it, yes.
So wait a minute now. When you say that,
Well, I'm getting ready to
that's a
explain.
relative statement.
No, if I have things, or I'll put this. There was a time I had more guitars than I have now. Oh, for those days. And then I had more guitars. And I was told on 2 different occasions that guitar now belongs to someone else, and was told who it belonged to. And on 2 different occasions, I've taken a guitar to another person and handed it to them and said, Yah said that this is now yours. And I didn't lay any stipulations as to what they did. They could sell it, they could play it. It It was up between them and Yah. But I was told, give it to them. And I said, yes, sir. Now I have what I need. If I'm stingy with what I have, if I'm going to argue with him over whether it's a guitar or clothes or money or food, whatever, then yes, I should be convicted. If I am holding things in trust for him, recognizing I am a steward of everything that is under my hand, I'm recognizing anything that is under my hand belongs to you. And if you want me to give it to someone else or dispose of it in some other fashion, I'm willing to be accountable to you and to do that. Some people he can't trust to be a faithful steward, so they don't have much under their hand. Other people he can, and he blesses them abundantly. But whether you have little or whether you have a lot, 10 talents or one, you're going to be held accountable for what's in your hand. If I am hoarding up to see how much I can accumulate, then yes, I've got a problem. For that, I should be convicted. And in America, unfortunately, we gloat about how much we possess. We're not, got to have bigger, got to have better. And for that, I can be guilty. Let us pray. Do you agree with that?
It's personal with me, That's why. Because when I read that, I go, am I supposed to go and give everything to sell it, get that money to the poor, and follow him? Am I even close to that? And I always go, probably not, or definitely not, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's always personal. That's why I try to get somebody else's opinion of it, so that I don't go home beating myself up over it.
I have a hard time, like in Richmond. There's somebody on every corner asking, I need food to eat. I mean, and some of them are legit. Some of them it's a business. Some of them you just don't know. So, I mean, I'm like, I try to go by, and I think this is obedience. Do I do it all the time? Probably not. But I try to okay, if you want me to give to this particular person, let me know. And then it's up to you what they do with it. It's me to be obedient to do it. So I think it's a matter of obedience. If he tells you to do it or leads you to do it and you don't do it, then that's not good.
And that's what I asked at first. Did Yeshua say that to us, or did he just say it to him?
Well, he knew that guy would not give up his stuff.
But he made the requirement of him anyway.
Yeah.
Now, I've read some commentators who say that young man was Barnabas, who later ended up being a partner with the Apostle Paul or Rosh. And where they get that, I don't know. But I have read that comment. So he may have changed his mind later on. I don't know.
But recently with all this immigration and across the borders.
Speak up, because there are people online that
I
want
don't like with all these immigrants coming through our borders. I don't know about all of you, but I just, like you were saying, I mean, these people are all over in Newport News. In almost every corner or wherever you go, they're out there, they're playing music, they're holding up signs, and I have a hard time walking by and not communicating with them. Now, if I'm in the car and I'm coming up on a red light or the light turns green, there's always somebody there, and I don't know. It's really getting bad in Newport News, and they can barely speak English. I don't know. I just think.
Yeah, it's the same way at my house too. less than a mile from the house is at least 2 or 3 on the corner.
These people coming through our borders, I mean, they're going everywhere.
They don't have, if they're not brought in through the proper channels, and there's two sides of that. Breaking through the borders and so forth, they're coming across, they don't have a legitimate standing, and they gotta dance around and try not to be identified, and that's a problem. The channels that are proper, I had no idea how stringent and hard it is to go through those channels. But I knew someone who lived, or of someone who lived in the Philippines, and they had family who was already here, legally here, residing here, working here,
Yeah, that's different.
and they were sponsoring them to be able to come from the Philippines over. But the State Department there in the Philippines, I mean, it was a line, and they had to be, form after form, after the legalities, the bureaucracies, the red tape. It was a nightmare to finally, basically had to bribe someone almost in the State Department to push their paperwork through to get them to be able to come over.
Right.
So,
But you look at
we,
past year, I mean, the amount of
it
difference.
it's a huge issue.
And there's not a lot of them are not being processed.
Right.
Julie had your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but if you study what Brother Judah says about tithing and giving, they're really strong on you need to know where that money's going and what it's for. You need to be really responsible and do your due diligence before you give to whatever thing it is that you do. So that helps me at stoplights.
So what we do is we keep water, small waters, and nabs
In the car.
in the car,
Yeah.
and we keep little sanitation packs you get from the motels with shampoo and conditioner. And when you stop and you open the window, a lot of times they will take it, and it's not up to us whether they keep it or not. We're doing our part by doing what we're supposed to do. So, but we don't give money out.
The nice part about that is it's not harmful.
Right. We don't give money out. There's been times when he's bought meals for people who have asked for meals, and he's walking around a corner and they throw it away. He did his part.
Wow.
He did his part. That person actually wanted money for something else, but he bought them a meal. So, you have to understand that when you give from your heart, you give from your heart. No matter what they do to it, you're giving from your heart. And that's what God's looking for us to give from our heart, more so than anything.
I had an occasion where I pulled up in the parking lot early one morning, and was traveling, and the best place I could find, the only place I could find was Bojangles. Not my first choice of breakfast food, but I was going to go in and get a Bojangles biscuit. I got out of my car, and this young man walks up to me. He said, "Mister, are you going in there?" I said, "I sure am. Are you hungry?" He said, "Yes, sir, I sure am." I said, "Well, come on, let's go have some breakfast." So he walked in, and he's walking in the door in front of me. He said, "I'll get something small. I'll get it." I said, "Tell him what you want." So I felt good about it up to that point. And when he walked up to the young woman at the cash register who's going to take his order, she rolled her eyes, and I thought. So he ordered what he wanted, and then he went on down, and he was getting his drink out of the machine. And she kind of looked at me. I told her what my order was. I said, "Does he come in here like this often?" She said, "Yes, he does." I said, "Ma'am, it's all right. If he's hungry, I don't mind feeding him." So he got his food. He went over. He sat down, and he was chowing down. I took mine. We got in the car and drove down the road. But you never know. And as much as you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me.
That's right.
Now, did I get played for free breakfast?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeshua, in my opinion, I bought you breakfast this morning.
That's right.
That's my heart.
He sat there and ate.
He sat there and ate it.
Yes,
So I fed a person.
Yes.
And for that, I can be thankful. Let's move. Every one of us, from birth, we have a righteous inclination and an unrighteous or evil inclination. And of course, that stems from what happened in the garden. In the book of Bereshit, or Genesis 25:22, it says that even Esau and Yaakov struggled with each other in the womb. One was demonstrating an inclination different than the other. Even in the womb, they were wrestling over it. And it's amazing. It's hard to me to think about our newest grandbaby, Rebecca. She's just a little thing, and she's just learning to make faces and look sweet and innocent. It's amazing how in just a few more months, we will see the first demonstration of an act of rebellion or selfishness out of that child. Any one of us has raised a child. You all know what it's like. It's like, oh, no, you didn't. You cannot wait until that child is walking and talking clearly before you start correcting their behavior, or their dirt will take over. Now, obviously, you don't give corporal punishment to an infant, but nonetheless, you have to. What's one of the first words that a child learns to say? No. Where did they hear that? From you. No. Before they learn to say mama or dada, they're learning to say no. I don't know the number of times that our kids were going, we pushed them in the buggy to the grocery store. No. It's like, they must be hearing that a lot. We had some dirty children. They were full of dirt. Yes, sir.
You know that nowadays you can tell there's a certain percentage that never heard that word.
Yes. Mine's all they know. In Romans chapter 8, verses 5 through 9. Again, we're still talking about life in the spirit or life in the flesh, walking by the spirit. For those who live, he says, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the matters of the flesh. That is, they are flesh focused. You work with these people. They live close by to you at times. They're at Walmart. Did you know that? Their minds are fleshly focused. But those who live according to the Spirit, the matters of the Spirit. When you are spirit focused as opposed to flesh focused, you stick out like a sore thumb. Everybody looks at you weird. Right? Why? Because the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace. I'll pause here. A wise woman, when Laura and I were pastoring our first church many years ago, she gave me this wisdom. She says, concerning a decision I need to make, she says, follow peace. When you've prayed over it, follow after peace, wherever that's at. Oftentimes, I went back to that. You can't always do that. Sometimes you just got to make the hard choice and there's no peace about it. But if there are choices and you have one you have peace about, follow that. The mind of the flesh is enmity towards Elohim, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Elohim. When your mind operates outside the boundaries of the Torah, your mind becomes an adversary to the Most High. You are at war with him. Neither indeed is it able, and those who are in the flesh are unable to please Elohim. But, he says, you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if indeed the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you. And if anyone does not have the Spirit of Messiah, this one is not his. If someone's not born again and they do not have the Spirit of Yeshua dwelling inside them, you cannot expect them to make good spiritual choices. They're going to make their choices according to their flesh. What's best for me? in Galatians 5, verse 16 to 17. Again, Rachel was speaking, he says, and I say, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not accomplish the lust of the flesh. Again, he says, for the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are opposed to each other so that you do not do what you desire. You have this war going on inside your being, among your members. There is a part of you, of your evil inclination, your fleshly inclination, that is going to be selfish, self-focused, ambitious to the hurt of others. It's going to be carnal. It's going to be lustful. It's going to be angry, jealous, whatever the negative emotion is. And then there's that part of you that is being refined by the Spirit. And you're hearing in your spirit, no, 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 do not go down that path. Do not say those words. Do not confront that. Don't get involved here. Don't watch that. Don't hear that. And your fleshly inclination is, fill my garbage can with that trash. I got to hear that. I just want to look one time. I'll risk one eye. Right? So when we act carnally, lustfully, selfishly, in pride and arrogance and hatred or malice towards someone, are we able to say, I'm sorry, I yielded to my flesh? Blaming our flesh as if our spiritual selves are not a part of the equation. People do that. I'm sorry. I got in the flesh right there. I apologize. Well, now that you're suddenly spiritual, I guess we'll just let it ride. No. Even when you repent, you still have to pay sometimes in consequences for your fleshly decisions. Hello. You acted in your flesh? Well, there's a cost to that. So is that all there is to it, that we simply acted in our flesh? Aaron and Moshe and David and all of those who made huge mistakes in their choices, and it was simply an act of flesh and a moment of spiritual weakness, therefore there should be no bearing on them, right? Actually, what gave their flesh such an advantage at these critical moments? Why was your flesh so strong against your spirit? It's the old Native American story. There is two wolves inside, one black, one white. Which one is stronger than the other? Whichever one you feed. So if you're constantly taking inwardly that which is flesh and its orientation, your flesh is going to prevail over your spirit. Well, I just don't understand why I can't defeat this. If you feed your spirit will become stronger than your flesh, and your spirit will enable you to rise up against your flesh when it starts talking to you and say, absolutely not. You're not doing that.
That's right.
You're not yielding. You're not giving in. You're not accepting. You're not promoting. No. And your flesh will tell you, but I'm dying. What do you mean we're fasting today? Get over it, stomach. We just skipped breakfast. You'll live. I just need a cracker. Can I have a cracker? It's such a beautiful day. The wind's not blowing today. Can't I play golf today? I know it's Shabbat, but it was blowing 25 and 30 miles an hour when I was trying to play last time. But look at the wind's not blowing, Father. I'll rest tomorrow and make up for it, right? I'm just keeping it real, folks. Just keeping it real. All right. Three quick reasons. I'm not going to be lengthy here. Closing number one. Why do people allow their flesh to rule over their spirit? How do you get into that position? Number one, can I stretch out that far? Focusing on now rather than preparing for the future. Staying in the moment. Some of Israel's sages suggest that Aaron crafted the calf idol simply to buy time. Rashi goes through this detailed explanation that they knew that Moshe was going to be on the mountain for 40 days. They started counting the day that he went up. Moshe didn't. Moshe only counted after he got up there, and he started with the next day. So in the people's estimation, 40 days had come and gone, and Moshe says, no, it's only 39. Now, you can agree or disagree, or, it's plausible thought, it's reasonable understandings of things. But for whatever reason, they thought that he was delayed enough that they were concerned he's not coming back. He's gotten lost in the spirit realm up there, and he's not coming back. Some animals killed him. Yah killed him. He starved to death. He hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 40 days. So Aaron is saying, I need to buy 24 hours here, according to some rabbinical writers. And so I'll tell them to bring me their gold, and I'll make an idol, and maybe it'll take me so long that it'll put them off until he gets back. Now, what he thought Moshe would do when he saw an idol of any sort, again, what was he thinking? Was he thinking? Could he not see the negative horrors of what an idol in the camp would bring in the days ahead? Again, this is just a line of thinking that exemplifies thinking for right now and not the future. How many young teenagers get all caught up in a heated, passionate moment of right now, and they're not thinking about the rest of their education or the consequences of their passions? We're young, it can't happen to us. Ask the thousands, if not millions, of people that were in the same situation, and it did happen to them. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 through 21, this is what Yeshua said. Do not lay up treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there is your heart also. Are you thinking about just right now and how much I can have right now? Or are you thinking about that is laid up for which is yet to come? I love the rabbinical mindset and commentary I read a number of years ago that says that if you have an abundance of wealth here and now, it could be because you have nothing to share in the world that is yet to come. But if you lack in this world, what you lack now will be given to you in abundance and that which is yet to come. Are you living for here or for then? Down in verse 33, the same chapter, Yeshua summed it up with this word. He said, seek first the reign of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these things, or all this, will be added to you. Get your priorities right. Now, then he also said, thinking about the troubles of today is sufficient enough for today. Take care of today. How does he equate? I mean, you said be focused on the future and the kingdom and it's coming, but now you're saying be focused on today. You can't worry about tomorrow and next week and so forth. Worrying is not going to profit you anything about your future. But know this, prepare yourself now for that which is yet to come. Seek that as a priority. And find that priority in your common, normal, everyday life and do it. Well, when I get into the kingdom, I'm going to do thus and such. How about practicing some of that here and now? I've always thought, Father, I'd like to be up on the goal line in the kingdom somewhere, and I'd like to have a vineyard. I'd like to have a vineyard for this reason. I want to be able to bring a vintage of wine that I have produced to your temple, Yeshua, and it be poured out as a drink offering for you. Do I know anything now about grapes or vineyards or winemaking? No. I can tell you that $2 chuck don't taste good. But if I want to do it then, I might need to start studying up now about what would be involved. Because he's just going to zap me and hand me some vines and say, son, go plant them. Yes, master. No, it may not work that way. It might. It might not. In Romans 8:18, Rashi says, I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the esteem that is to be revealed in us. Don't be so focused on the hardships of right now, because what's coming is going to be glorious. Don't lose hope now. Hold on. Payday's coming. How many times have you been in the middle of your work week and you think, I'm going to quit this job? I'm going to tell them that they can just take this job and do something unpleasant with it. And then you remind yourself, oh, but I got a payday coming. And vacation's around the corner. And I need a medical process and I need that insurance. I mean, you just keep reminding yourself, and baby got to have new shoes. Right? So you refocus your motivation. There are times you have to keep yourself rightly focused. If you watch the news on a regular basis right now, you're not going to be a happy camper. But let me tell you, and it dawned on me again this week, I've had to be reminded of this a few times, and it's not original with me. The last days that we're walking into, it's not about the anti-Messiah and all of the power and the authority that they're going to exercise and all how we're going to have to live in a cave and live in a bunker. No. It's about preparing yourself for the kingdom.
That's right.
I'm preparing now, in the face of all this adversity. It's preparation time for the king. The king is coming. And that's what we need to be focused on. You can panic and run and hide and think that they're going to martyr you. Well, they may or they may not, but the king's coming. And if I rise to meet him in the air, or whether he pulls me up out of the ground first, it's his choice. But one way or the other, he's going to collect me to himself and bring me to his kingdom.
Hallelujah.
This is preparation time, folks. Kingdom is coming. Change your focus. And the movie, I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, in the movie Kingdom of Heaven, I like that movie. There's a large Islamic army laying siege to Jerusalem, and the situation is helpless. And a Catholic priest advises everybody, convert now and repent later. I actually had somebody say, oh, go ahead and eat a ham sandwich. If you're upset about it, you can repent later.
No, I don't think so.
I'm thinking, I can't put that in my mouth. I've heard it advised that if you're in the wilderness setting, eat squirrels and rabbits to survive, to eat kosher tomorrow. Where is that in the word? I ain't either. Remember the ravens. Yeah. There are mindsets that surmise we live in a modern world to which the Torah commands need to adapt to. No one should expect us to live by commands written in the ancient days. But the coming kingdom will be based on the same Torah.
That's right.
That is an ancient book.
Yes.
And those who live by it now will be those who will live in the kingdom then. If you're saying that his word is out of date and it no longer applies, you will be out of date and no longer applying either when the kingdom comes.
That's right.
I remember what Mike Clayton always taught, and I probably don't have the wording exactly right, but you will perform later how you
Practice
now.
Yes. Don't expect yourself to be doing flips and flops and rolling in a spectacular fashion like a superhero if you don't practice that now. And it hurts too bad to practice that right now. So I'm not. My plan is not to run. I'm going to stand my ground and see what happens. I can't run like I used to.
This morning I was sharing with Sam the scripture in Romans where it's talking about following the flesh versus the spirit. And I told him, the scripture was telling you that it's not this. You live by the flesh, it won't subject itself to the Torah of Elohim. I said, well, what's the flip side of that? If you're living by the Ruach, you will subject yourself to the Torah of Elohim. So, you don't hear that preached much, but read right through there.
Well, we do now. You just started preaching it.
Yeah.
Consider Lot's daughters. The decisions that they made were based upon their training in Sodom. Sodom. Some commentators say, well, they were alone with Dad in the cave, and everyone that they knew in the surrounding area was scorched and dead. In their estimation, the entire world could have been destroyed, and they were the only ones alive. So therefore, they may not have felt like we have any other choice. It might be prudent to investigate your choices.
That's right.
Yes.
If you feel trapped and there's no other choice to make, look around. There may be another alternative somewhere. Possibly. We'll finish this section with this thought. Our adversary, Hasatan, will try to deceive us into believing that living by the Ruach means having nothing now, but possibly everything later on and then. Well, if you're going to be righteous, you're just not going to have anything right now. Everybody else is going to be enjoying life, and no, you're going to be a pauper. You're going to do without. You're just not going to have any fun. Life in the Spirit actually means joy.
That's right.
And life and fullness and fruitfulness and the supply of everything that we need now. Yeshua said, the Father knows you need food and you need clothing and you need shelter. He knows that you need people in your life. He knows that you need encouragement. He knows that you need supply. And he's your father. What child would go to Yeshua and encourage? What child would ask their father for a piece of bread and they give him a serpent or a stone? If you know how, as a father, to give bread to your children, don't you think your Father in heaven has knowledge of your need?
Yes. Thank you.
When our daughters were little, I was too apt to say no. They come to me, Daddy, can we? And I was already ready to say no before they got the request out of their mind. And my beloved wife, bless her heart, she took me aside. She said, you're saying no too quick, too often. You need to at least listen to them. And from that time on, I've tried to, before you make up your mind, listen to what they say or what they're asking for. Ask some questions. Who's going to be there? What's going to be going on? Etc. And let them explain. And I found myself saying yes. And to their great surprise, what? So when my grandchildren, Papa, will you do thus and such? Too often I say, not just yet. But if I say, if you let me finish this right here, then yes. So it might mean a Nerf gun battle with Gavin, or throwing a ball out in the yard or something of that nature, coloring, whatever the thing is. But you have to remind yourself, you were little once, and I remember going to Dad, will you play ball with me? Will you do thus and such? Bubby's a lot better at it than Papa is. Much better. But how much more your Heavenly Father? Yeshua says, suffer these little ones to come to me. This is what the kingdom's like. So when we come to Him with childlike hearts, not immaturity, but with childlike hearts and innocence and purity of intention, the Father has knowledge enough to know how to meet our need. He wants you to enjoy life. I pray for you. I was praying for you yesterday. You be promoted on your jobs.
Thank you very much.
That you benefit. That you have what you need. That you have health and strength. That your children rise up and call you blessed and favored. That you're strong. That you get things in the spirit. I pray for you. If I don't pray for you, why would I be surprised that none of that happened? I'm expecting God to turn your lives around and make it better for you. All right, I'm moving. I promise. Second thing, people make bad choices they don't understand the destruction of their and the results of what they're choosing to do. Can't be as bad as all that. It'll be. Don't you just love the movie plot where there is some certain circumstance going on and somebody looks at one character and says, "It'll be all right, I promise." And you realize you have no ability to keep that promise. The results of what you're promising are not even in your hands. How can you look at someone and say, "It'll all be all right, I promise"? How do you promise something you can't perform? The people were desperate enough for leadership that they gave their own gold and jewelry to the cause of something that would be visible to lead them. It's hard to convince the human mind to believe in what it cannot see. What's not tangible. If I can't put my hands on it, how do I know that it's real? They believed that Moshe could lead them through the wilderness. They believed that. They followed him. But now Moshe's not around. And without Moshe, they needed to see something else. This requirement of the visible was much more destructive than they could have imagined. Make us a God. They could not have imagined how destructive that request was going to be. Bad choice. Now, when you read chapter 32 and verse 24, it says, Aaron is explaining to Moshe, "And I said to them, whoever has gold, let them take it off. And they gave it to me. And I threw it into the fire, and this calf popped out. Popped out, pooped out, however it came out. It came out. And we laughed at that. How, Moshe, that's the most incredulous statement. You actually think I'm going to believe that? Not so fast. So I've laughed at that and shook my head at that, but not so fast. Is it not possible that there was some element of magic or sorcery or demonism involved? In chapter 32 and verse 20, it says, look at the wording here. He took the calf which they made. It doesn't say he made, they made. Who is they? Both rabbis and Christian theologians and commentators say the same thing. That could be a reference to what the King James names as Yanis and Yambres, or Yochanan and Mamre. It's another translation. That 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 8 talks about as being those that opposed Moshe. In other words, it's thought that these two individuals were sorcerers who learned Egyptian magic. Remember, the magicians of Pharaoh's court was able to replicate the first 3 plagues. How did they do that? Demonic ability, or sleight of hand, or both? Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 1, Isaiah will probably says, take a pen and write it down in a man's handwriting. It refers to writing with a man's pen. The phrase that is used there is Keret Enosh. I hope I'm saying that right, Steve. Keret Enosh. If you will remember, Enosh is the son of Seth, or Sheth. It goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 4 and verse 26. The scriptures say concerning the days of Enosh that it was during his days, your scriptures translation says, men began to call on the name of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. The Stone's edition Chumash, it says, it was in his days that men began to profane the name of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. And they did so by attributing to the stars and the planetary bodies powers as Yah's emissaries. In other words, Yah distributed or delegated authorities to the stars and the bodies of the heaven to rule over man on the earth. Therefore, man should worship the stars in the heavens. Nobody's saying this. The Creator's so far out there beyond us that we can't reach him, but we can reach the stars. We can think of the stars. We can see them. I can't see him, but I can see the stars, so I will worship what I can see and what I can know. Because this unknown one, I don't even know what he wants. It's what Rashul dealt with in the Areopagus at the Mars Hill. He said this altar to the unknown God. Just to cover their bases, they worshiped the God that they couldn't see or know, didn't understand. He said, this one I can tell you about. It was here then that the people chose to bow before a physical representation of what they believed existed in the spirit. He's out there somewhere. We don't know what he looks like. If we just had an image, we would feel more comfortable worshiping what we can see. But Yah says this is an unholy mixture. And Aaron fell in the same trap, declaring before the idol and its altar that the next day would be a festival to Yah. And you would think, well, maybe Aaron was just buying time. I can accept that up to the point that he made an altar to it. When he crafted the altar, he expected sacrifices. The argument could be, well, they weren't replacing Yah, they were replacing Moshe. They needed, someone else to lead them. Can you follow me just for a brief rabbinical trail here? In Ezekiel chapter number 1, you see, as I talked the other week about cherubim, the four-faced beings that are his throne, one of which those faces is a calf. And Exodus chapter 24, Moshe, Aaron, his sons, and 70 elders go up on the mountain, and they see the throne of Elohim. If they saw the throne of Elohim, they have seen the cherubim, and the one of the faces being a calf face. Is that why you have a calf idol?
And they
The
worship-
Creator will ride on this calf, and as we carry the calf, the Creator will ride on the calf and show us which way to go. Therefore, we will worship the visible part of Him, and by extension, we're going to worship the invisible part of Him.
Was it the calf of God in Egypt though too?
There was a calf, yeah. But we do not do any less if we take the menorah and we stop seeing it as a symbol of the Ruach HaKodesh, and we start worshiping the artifact that bears the light. If you're worshiping a man or a woman do you think is your superstar teacher, you're worshiping the visible, and by an extension, you think you're worshiping the Most High, but you're going to worship the man or worship the woman. People parade religious artifacts through streets, and they throw flowers and money and great pageants for it. They're bowing down before symbolism, and in their mind, they think they're worshiping the Most High. And Yah says it's idolatry.
That's right.
No man has ever seen my face. Do not create an image of me. He says, you will not put another God's face on my face. I will not wear the mask of your preferred Elohim so that you're more comfortable with me. I am that which I am and who I will be. In Psalms 106, verse 19 and 20, it says, referencing this, they made a calf in Horeb and bowed down to a molded image. They changed my esteem into the form of an ox that eats grass. Rabbi Judah said in Perkei Eliezer, Samael, which is a rabbinical name for Hasatan. Samael entered into the calf idol, and it was lowing. It made a lowing sound to mislead Israel, as it said in Isaiah 1:3, the ox knows its owner, but Israel doesn't know its owner was Satan. As he was also the owner of the snake that could speak and mislead Adam. So the same one that gave voice to the serpent in the garden, this commentator says gave voice to the ox that they created and convinced the people to worship it. And before you think that's just too kooky, understand in the book of Revelation, the false prophet is able to cause the image of the beast to speak and to be animated, and the people are going to be so fascinated with it that they're going to worship it. What is it? Demonic deception. In Matthew 16 and 14, Yeshua said, a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except for the sign of Jonah. You're looking for a sign? Your adversary will give you one. You want to see something that you can have proof for and not to worship the Most High? You get it. It will be a deceptive sign. It is the crowd who seeks signs in order to believe that will be betrayed and deceived by the very signs that they seek. And what's also here horrendous is that after they had offered their sacrifices, it says that they feasted, and then it says that they rose up to play. The word play here is achak. You want to spell that. You can spell it T-Z-A, sakach. And it's the same word that's used to describe the behavior between Isaac and Rebekah that caused Abimelech, the king, to say, they're not brother and sister. That boy's married to her. And it's the same word that is used concerning that Potiphar's wife used to suggest that Joseph had tried to have his way with her. So what they were doing was lewd and very carnal. All is an act of worship. If your tangible, visible requirements to serve Yah causes you to walk ungodly, your signs have deceived you. If the man or the woman you think such a great teacher leads you astray into some kind of weird doctrine to where you're not walking righteously, you've been deceived. You think, well, it can't happen to me. It's happened to a lot of people who said that. All right, final thought here. If you don't understand who Yah is, you're not going to make real good decisions. He's not to be mocked. He says in Leviticus chapter 10, verse 3, I am set apart, and by those who approach me, I must be set apart. He will not change to appease you. He's not going to make you worship him or love him. Yah is not interested in your vote, your opinion. How dare we go to him? Well, Father, if you'd like to know what my opinion on how you should fix this is. I was thinking, Father, if you could just fix, insert the name of someone. By doing this, my problem would be resolved. Y'all may be saying, I was thinking that if I could fix you by doing this, my problem would be resolved. Again, he will not allow you to exchange his identity for someone else's that you prefer. He will not perform tricks just to give you a sense of credibility. Father, would you just let it be so that when I do this, that some miracle will happen, and that way everybody will know that I'm on your side or that I'm right in my opinion. There's Steve, is it in the Talmud or the Mishnah that talks about Rabbi Eliyahu was arguing with three other rabbis. Eliyahu says, if I am right, let thunder sound from the heavens. And the thunder sounded and the voice was heard. Eliyahu is right. And the other three rabbis say, still 3 against 2. Yeah. People have made their choices based on the false understanding that Yeshua has come to do away with the mean, harsh, and judgmental demeanor of the Father. That's Marcion's serpentine lie. Yah's not changed. He's not mean, he's just. He's not fair, he's righteous. So you can stomp your foot and shake your fist at him if you want to. So that's not fair. He's not trying to be fair. He's trying to be just and righteous. And he requires the same of us. It's not changed. He's not going to change. The last thought here. If Yah ever changed his mind, what is to prevent him from changing his mind again in the future? If Yah changed, he gave Israel the Torah, He gave it to the world and they rejected it, and Israel accepted it, and he's declared his Torah as everlasting. And then he changes his mind and says, I've done away with the Torah because my son Yeshua fulfilled it. It's now null and void. What should keep him from changing his mind in the future? Say, I've changed my mind again. Now it's back in function, and you're going to have to keep it. He's always the same, forever the same. He never changes. All right. What was supposed to be 45 minutes went at least 46. Anyone else, you got thoughts or questions you want to add to this before we pray today?
I got a tidbit thought.
Joyce and then Joyce, okay?
Every time I read through this, and especially now in the day and time that we're living in, the very first verse that you used of 32:1 is talking about Moshe going up there and him taking so long and people, deciding to take things in their own hands and everything. It's the same doggone thing that's going on now. Yeshua has ascended, and Moshe went up to the mountain. Yeshua ascended, he's staying up there, he's not coming back when people thought he should be coming back. Year 2000, he should have come back by then, but he didn't. And so people are taking things in their own hands and acting like they're partying, they're carrying on, they're acting like he's not here by now, he just may not be coming back. Something must have happened to him. Just like you said with Moshe, he enjoyed the presence of God, he's just not coming back. And so it's the same mindset that's going on today. That same thing.
Agreed. And Joyce.
Just sort of honing in on walking in the Spirit. I was just thinking in my mind, let's compare it to playing the piano, which some do today. And how do I play the piano? Well, I studied. I had a teacher. I spent time in music classes. So how do you walk in the Spirit? You're praying. You're gathering with people to learn about, what God requires from you. You read His Word. You have a person who is, a person like you, a pastor, who teaches us. So that when we're walking in the Spirit, when we're praying ourselves, we're not going to be doing the living in the flesh, certainly not as much as we have but in the past. But when we have temptation, we don't look at it with like, oh no, I've got to not do that sin. Unfortunately, I should obey your God. But look at it as an opportunity to say, I am the Lord's. This is the time that I'm going to show him that I love him, that I'm going to do his will, and he'll know that I'm approved in his sight.
Mm-hmm. I saw again just a few days ago that it was in reference to a guitarist. You have to practice 10,000 hours to be able to play interpretatively without thinking of the scale is, don't miss the note on the scale. Likewise with the piano, 10,000 hours perhaps, so that when you're ready to play, you're not thinking of the mechanics. It flows out of you because of the time invested. What would happen if you gave 10,000 hours to prayer and study and waiting on him and listening and worship? It would flow out of you as opposed to, I got 5 minutes, Father. What you got to say? Now, that's an exaggeration. Okay.
Can be that way.
Yeah. What flows out of you is what you give yourself to. Anyone else?
I was going through the same thing you were teaching, and I'm just saying to God, I have a roommate, like a brother enemy. But anyway, 15 chickens, two old beagles that are, on their last leg. One's a little healthy, but they're all, everything that he has is a problem. We have 5 cats. He hated cats. He used to kill them, but now he loves my cats too. And I say to God, please, I said, God, can't you let the 2 beagles die and the 15 chickens, and my life would be more peaceful, because those chickens drive me insane. I'm trying to keep them from the cat's food that's in the shed, and they're not stupid. I can't stand sneaky. I open the chicken pen, and it doesn't take but less than 5 minutes. It's right in there trying to eat the cat's food. So I go through this numerous times.
So
I go through keeping the dogs inside. Now he keeps the dogs inside. One dog barks, crazy bark all the time. Always had that problem under the house. Outside, now it's inside. The sneaky female dog will sneak out and go in the shed if I have some food. I can't have peace to feed my cat inside because
So
of the
you-
dog. And I said,
You
God,
need a
why
father to
don't
resolve
you-"
your zoo going on.
Yeah, I said, that's why I said, God, why don't you just kill them?
Well, hopefully it won't come to all of that.
Oh, I can't do it.
Hopefully it won't come to all of that.
Oh,
You were talking earlier about there's a black wolf and a white wolf in the body, and whichever one you feed the most is going to dominate over the other one. The
Yes.
white was the Holy Spirit. I mean, the white.
It depends on how
The black was the flesh.
it can be reversed. That it's just
But-
the differentiation. You got one here and one there. It's not one color references good or
The
bad.
Apostle Paul was arguing. He emphasized on this all the time. That he always said, "You feed you're going to be battling the flesh, and the flesh is going to battle the spirit."
Sure.
And he's always saying you got to mortify the deeds of the flesh daily.
You have to put the old man to death every day. Yes, sir. Exactly right. Absolutely.
I wanted to just make a comment on something I said
started
at
doing
the
that,
end of
and
the
then he
service
replied
last
to
week.
the-
And what I said was that there were, in the temple, they were offering daily sacrifices to Caesar in the 1st century. Well, I knew this in my mind. It wasn't the 1st century AD, but it was the 1st century BC. So that was one of the things when the Jewish revolt was taking place, that they stopped the daily sacrifice to
Okay.
Caesar. And that, was, made things worse, I guess, for
Well, thank you for that clarification.
whatever side. And also, I said that it was the Romans who appointed the high priest in the 1st century. Well, that's not exactly true. It was sometimes true. And sometimes it was their client state Roman person who was, there in the area. For instance, I think it was a person named Quirinius who appointed Annas as the priest, and he was a Roman. But generally speaking, it was the client king, like the Herods, for example, and it was they who had the opportunity to appoint the high priest. So I just want to clarify.
It was a politically
Yes.
achieved position
Yes.
rather than a man of righteousness.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Let's stand together.
Yes.
Hey. Will you receive the blessing of his name? Yivarekaka Yahweh vayishmareka. Yael Yahweh panabileka vikuneka. Isa Yahweh panabileka viasim leka shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and be gracious and favorable to you. And may Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you that he may grant unto you shalom. Amen. Let's face Jerusalem. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Le'elam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi l'kamim ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Yahweh God, King of this universe, who's brought forth breath from the earth. In the name of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, as our bread of life, we give you thanks and praise. Amen.
Amen.